Good morning, comrades. You are listening to WHIVLP New Orleans 102.3. This is Good Morning Comrade. You can listen to us every Saturday morning on WHIVFM.org slash listen, or also you can get back episodes, more information about us at goodmorningcomrade.com. We have a very special show today. We have three guests, and I guess we can start kick it around the horn here. So just sort of going, we're going to start with Felix. Felix, you want to introduce yourself to the audience?
What's up, everybody? I'm Felix Allen here in New Orleans. I'm a part of New Orleans for Community Oversight of Police and FRSO.
All right, cool. And the very next up, we have Toni.
Hi, friends. I'm Toni Jones. I use he, her pronouns. I'm a Black trans woman from New Orleans. I am the chair of New Orleans for Community Oversight of Police, or if that's too much of a mouthful, no cop. And I am also a Freedom Road Socialist organization member.
All right. And then finally, to round out the group, we have Rory. Hello, Rory.
Hello, I'm Rory MacDonald. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a member of Students for a Democratic Society at Tulane University. And I'm also here representing the Jones MacDonald Defense Committee. It's a newly formed organization in New Orleans.
Great. So while so the reason I wanted to have you guys on the show is because I think that there's a lot of actions that are happening in New Orleans that are around specifically the fight back to of against the Israeli government and the attacks that they're doing right now in Palestine. So I guess to sort of give us the latest on what's going on there, Rory, can you please sort of like give us a not just a quick update of what's going on over in Gaza, but also what's going on in New Orleans right now in terms of resistance?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, today, day after Easter, and we are marking day 178, I believe, of the genocide in Gaza. Just this past weekend, the IOF ramped up their assaults on Al Shifa Hospital, which led to a lot of, obviously civilian casualties and incredible brutality, as we've been seeing every day for the past, now almost 7 months. But also, Al Shifa was basically 30% of the medical service capacity of the city of Gaza, and one of the last, remaining sort of hospitals, major medical centers in the city.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, here in New Orleans, we stand with oppressed nations in the U.S. all over the world. So we have not been taking any of this quietly. We've been, constantly standing with our Palestinian siblings in Gaza and in the West Bank of New Orleans. And there's a lot going on. There's a ceasefire resolution, or there's a petition for a ceasefire resolution that's been picking up steam around the city. There's No Ship, which is a great organization that has been really putting pressure on New Orleans port to stop, because we're at the bottom of the Mississippi River.
Mm-hmm.
The white phosphorus gas that's manufactured in the United States has to go through the Mississippi to get out and abroad.
If you don't mind, like just jumping in, and we can get right back to it. I'm sorry, but I think people don't realize when like how key of a port New Orleans is when it comes to this kind of stuff, and like how much of a certain like leverage the city of New Orleans has when it comes to shipping out some of these horrible things like white phosphorus as well. Like the port of New Orleans is so huge in so much of this stuff. I just wanted to emphasize that for you, Rory. Please go on.
Yeah, thank you. And we have over at Tulane University and our friends at the Students for Democratic Society at 3 different colleges in the city now, at Loyola University and at University of New Orleans. And we have all been staying active. So there's a really broad, diverse, powerful resistance going on in the city, and you know that there's a strong resistance going on in New Orleans because they're starting to crack down and harass protesters.
Classic. Yeah, that's definitely one of the indicators. Anybody else want to sort of jump in there and sort of fill it out? All right. So I guess I wanted to know more a little bit about the ceasefire resolution that you were talking about. So, or the petition for a ceasefire resolution. And I can actually relate that. There's a similar thing happening in Richmond, Virginia, where I'm currently based, where there've been groups that have been pressuring the city council. They've been taking up time in public meetings, and definitely even independently reaching out and pressuring city council members to do that there. What does it look like over in New Orleans to push for that ceasefire resolution?
Yeah, so this is Tony speaking. With the October 7th, when it hit us in New Orleans, we were kind of like, like everyone else, it hit us by surprise. And we weren't necessarily, like ready and set up with organizations to tackle it. So everyone kind of scrambled to come together. So it has taken us a little while to get together a committee to push for a ceasefire resolution. And it's kind of just a grab bag of everyone, from some Muslim activists to Palestinians to Black activists in solidarity. Not just one particular org, but a real coalition effort. And if people want to know specifically exactly what's happening right now with resolution, we are currently doing a phone zap today and tomorrow. And listeners can go to JVP NOLA's Instagram account, and there is going to be a phone zap for two of our city council members, Freddie King Jr., so Freddie King III, and also JP Morrell. And you can sign up if you click the link, and it'll give you a slot, because we want to have their phone numbers on blast all day today and tomorrow. And essentially what we're asking folks to do is to, call and demand that these, so-called progressive city council members actually stand up, and stand with the progressive part of New Orleans, and saying that, hey, we want it to clear, that the city of New Orleans stands against the aggression by Israel, stands against the genocide, and stands with the Palestinian people. So, folks can just, read the resolution themselves. But I think the language that I've seen has been pretty good, and I'm pretty optimistic about our ability to push it forward.
Great. And in that vein, I know the three of you rather have been also participants in multiple actions that are on the ground, and also some of you have even been arrested in various of those. I guess we'll sort of kick it around in terms of what are the sort of things that you've been specifically participating in, and some of the things that have taken place at these events. So I guess we could start with Felix. Take it away.
What's up, y'all? This is Felix speaking. So there were recently, I believe in the span of 10 days, there were at least a couple arrests, and Rory also got assaulted. And these were all at separate but somewhat related events. Mine was the most recent. It was about a little less than 2 weeks ago. We were at a no-ship event, or it was actually a public comment session, a legally mandated public comment session that kind of no-ship this organization, which stands for New Orleans Stop Helping Israel's Ports. I don't know if we said that for all the listeners, but they urged folks to come out, and about 51, I think was the number I heard, but it may have been more, people showed up and signed up to give public comment, which was the most we've had at any of the 4 or 5 port meetings we've been at. And about 25 or 26 people spoke in favor of kind of ending the so-called Innovation Embassy, which is a partnership between.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Innovation Embassy?
Yeah. So the Innovation Embassy is a partnership between the Port of Ashdod, which is in Israel, and the Port of New Orleans. And one of the kind of companies involved is called GNO Inc. And their proposal is for the so-called Innovation Embassy, which includes knowledge sharing, support for entrepreneurs, joint business development, and I believe it was an Ashdod Port Accelerator program. I'm just reading from my notes exactly.
Yeah.
But if you look at a similar partnership between the Port of Barcelona and the Port of Ashdod, the only innovations being brought about were basically in cybersecurity and surveillance. So we don't, because that's a lot of what folks in Israel are apparently innovating. And from our work with NOCOP, we already more than enough of that in New Orleans, where they're trying to use facial recognition technology. And I don't know if it started already, but I have already seen a drone, because they are intending to use drones more. But so these are the kinds of things, not only for of course, we don't want these things in our community, and obviously we want to show solidarity with Palestinians. And like you said, New Orleans is a major choke point, and we have a special responsibility as a port city to cut all trade ties with Israel. So that was what everybody was commenting on that action. Things got a little heated, and for lack of a better word, one of the board members got butthurt and shut down the public comment session about halfway through. I think I was maybe the second to last person to speak or so. But people naturally got mad because there are at least a couple dozen more people who wanted their voices to be heard at this legally mandated comment session. People were chanting, and then an officer kind of singled me out in an effort to intimidate folks, and kind of just threw me on the ground. And I'm not going to lie, it didn't hurt or anything, but still it was a crazy escalation for a person who was literally just standing there saying nothing and trying to exit. But I got dragged out and eventually arrested and brought to jail.
Oh my gosh, that sounds. I mean, obviously, even if it wasn't like a physically painful, situation or anything like that, like being, not having control of your own body, being, forced by these, cops to into, these sort of situations when you didn't do anything, it sounds like, is really harrowing. So, yikes. Really quickly, let's pause for station ID and we'll kick it over to the next one. You listen to WHIVLP New Orleans 102.3. This is Good Morning Comrade, goodmorningcomrade.com, and listen anywhere in the world at whiv.org/listen. So I guess we can. Is there anything further you wanted to say about the sort of action that was taking place, and sort of like what happened from there?
I think that's pretty much the main thing. I guess, as Toni and Rory will say, it's just a pretty clear pattern of political repression, obviously from the police, but also from, as Rory will get into, someone who was, I believe, the head of CNN at one point.
Let's take it there. Let's take it there. Rory, what? Yeah. Why did Walter Isaacson attack you?
It's a great question, Jeff. Why did Walter Isaacson attack me? It's a lot of people have asked me that question. Like a lot of friends and family members ask me that question. That they because he's sort of this figure at both at Tulane, at the university that we both are a part of, and also sort of generally, like, he's CEO of CNN. He's this prolific author, and a lot of people say, what did you say to get him so angry, to get him so riled up, to make him lose his temper like that? And what's so incredible to me about it is that I always have to say nothing. I said, there's nothing that I said, because I didn't even finish a sentence before he stood up and walked over and basically decided to attack me. I mean, I barely got a few words out of my mouth before he just made it his MO to sort of as physically as possible just get me out of there.
And so can you sort of describe the event, like what's going on here? Like what was the sort of set the scene a little bit? Yeah,
absolutely. So basically the event was part of New Orleans Entrepreneur Week, which was a week-long thing. Yeah, right. sponsored by Tulane University and a bunch of other, Inc., a lot of these companies that we keep talking about with that all have their hands in all sorts of different things. And we had identified, or people at No Ship had identified a panel with ExxonMobil and Halliburton Labs and a few other companies on it, and had said this would be the one to go and, or we had a couple different targets that day, but to go and sort of, peacefully go in, just be attendees and sit in the crowd and just, at different moments during the panel, stand up and say something about Palestine. And I was, I think, I was the 8th person to speak during the event, to sort of like stand up and protest. And it was, they were just talking about nothing. It's this way that they talk about, like, blah, 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 money, money, money. Yeah, I think because I was not the first person to speak, it was like, Walter Isaacson had been in the audience and had heard other people say things, and everyone else had been removed very sort of gently. They had a security guard come over, sort of put a hand on their shoulder and say, okay, it's time for you to go now. And, nobody was resisting or anything like that. But when I stood up, it was a very different picture immediately. I stood up to say something to, obviously, Halliburton Labs, ExxonMobil. These are companies that are really deeply, deeply invested in the war machine.
Yeah, the bad guys. They're the bad guys.
Right, the bad guys. Yeah, I mean, if ever there were some companies to get together and, you should be picturing, sort of like rubbing hands together, like.
Yeah. I'm almost like thinking of like if you ever think like of the Hall of the League of the Injustice League, like the bad guys who just like all meet up around the around like table and like plot how to destroy the world, like Dr. Evil and like Austin Powers or something like that. Right, like these are the bad guys, like to a comical level at the New Orleans entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur, yes, they love words like entrepreneur, innovation, great cover words. But what I did learn later on, only after, so I guess I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but Walter Isaacson was, a professor in the history department. I'm a history student at Tulane. We don't know each other personally, but very much in the same sort of world there. And he stood up and, I actually can't say what he said to me on radio, but he had some choice things to say to me, and he was, sort of red in the face and yelling, and basically just grabbed both my arms and started shoving me out the door. And, while he had grabbed me, he was like really squeezing and pinching, and he at some point scratched me. I'm not sure when he found the time to scratch me, but I did.
That's assault. That is assault.
Found the scratch on my, it's legally it's battery.
Yeah.
And, I've talked to a lot of people about it, but you know how it is when powerful men do things like this, you know, and it's like, and that sort of ties into Toni's story too. I mean, it's like, I'm a trans activist. Toni's a trans activist. And when people in power decide to do things, they really often can, they really clearly feel like they can just do whatever they want. And that's why the Defense Committee is so important, and that's the work we're doing with the Jones MacDonald Defense Committee, is we're trying to say, get people power together to say, actually, you can't do whatever you want.
Okay. And so you were just escorted out. You were not arrested?
No, I was not arrested. I was just shoved out. But I did learn later that Walter Isaacson sits on the board of Halliburton Labs. So while he wasn't working security at the event, he certainly had an interest there. Yeah.
Well, that's sounds again like another harrowing experience when when people stand up for against the injustice that are happening in the world, the literal wars and genocide. I mean, this is the response that some of the great luminaries and minds of the world really that's who they are. I guess we can kind of, you mentioned Toni's story in her action that took place not too long ago. Toni, would you like to sort of set the stage for what happened at another separate action that you were part of?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. And I just want to say that, like, I'm glad that you called out exactly what happened with Rory as like battery, because that's what we're dealing with. Like, we're dealing with like crimes against us as like the protesters and demonstrators for speaking out against the crimes of like the very rich, like you said, like, you know, like the Legion of Doom type of like supervillain characters is what we're dealing with. But not riffraff, but not, you know, people who are
No, the most
trying to find a
respect,
platform.
yeah, and the people on the other side, the bad guys, are like the most respected people within our society. I didn't mean to interrupt you or whatever, but like that's just how it is.
Exactly. We're dealing with crimes on twofold. One, you know, it's an indictment that these people aren't being charged in, you know, international court for their participation in genocide. But it's also a crime that even the most milquetoast, the mildest form of criticism that you can give, the type of demonstration that they say is supposed to be what you do, you know, use your voice just politely at the time to do so. We've attempted to do, and we've been met with, you know, speaking out against these crimes. We've been met only with more crimes against us. And I just really want to emphasize that fact, you know, that this isn't just, you know, like every day, just like, oh, you know, mild security measures. I mean, Felix's civil, you know, liberties were violated when they were assaulted by, when they're battered by this cop who's a part of the port, who's already had civil rights a suit against them by the ACLU. I mean, you know, it's not legal for a cop to just choke slam you because he doesn't like what you're saying. He doesn't like that you're speaking up, especially not at a public comment. It's not legal for, you know, a bourgeois leisure class, you know, former CEO, CNN CEO to attack you and scratch you because he doesn't like that you're exposing his crimes. And, you know, like, we want to expose these crimes. So how I got brought in is exactly from this kind of outrage that I'm talking about here. I came to a demonstration 3 days after Rory was battered at Tulane University at Tulane Book Fest or Book Fair. You know, to be honest, I don't even know what it's called. I was just so upset.
Yeah.
I knew I needed
Is
to be
this
there
is this
to
the
support
one?
Rory.
Is this the one where James Carville did that interview where he was like, "Oh, I can't teach at this school anymore because those kids are just like too, like they're gonna get me in trouble because they're all like woke DEI or whatever." Who is
Oh
like
my
the Democrat guy, by the way. I also remember him. He like criticized the Democrats for like being like too many uppity women or something like that. This was at the same event, right? Why did you make Rory? Rory? Why did you make James Carville sad?
I just can't help it, Jeff. You know, I don't know what
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry, Toni. Go ahead.
Yeah, so how I got brought in, I'm the chair of New Orleans Community Oversight with the Police. And so while, you know, normally people may not realize a crime when they see it, our whole work in NOCOP is to handle police crimes because we are dealing with, you know, primarily the New Orleans Police Department, who is constantly being found in violation of its consent decree. That's constantly, you know, has a record of committing crimes. We are kind of primed already to, you know, understand when crime is being done against the people. So we came out, two of our members came out in support of Rory at the following demonstration right outside of Tulane's campus. And once again, you know, participating like in the legally allowed way, you know, off of campus, you know, where we have First Amendment rights to demonstrate. And basically my role in this demonstration, I don't know if you've, for people who haven't been in demonstrations, we, you know, typically aren't trying to, you know, like we're trying to just express our First Amendment rights. We're not trying to, you know, cause any kind of like physical violence or like disruption if we're just trying to do a valid speak out. So I was in the role to help keep things, kind of orderly and neat, to allow people to still be able to walk in through and get to the fair. So I was a marshal with a yellow vest on, and
It was your job to keep people safe.
Exactly. And I've been through many demonstrations. I've been organizing the city for like 6 years now. So
and marshals are also often very highly trained as well, and especially it sounds like you're an experienced marshal, so you know what you're doing.
Exactly. And we had no incident for the entire demonstration, no matter how direct the comments were about Tulane University or how vulgar some of the students got in their righteous anger. We had kind of like a mutual understanding with the TUPD that we would stay off of campus and that they would stay where they were and that we would allow people through. It wasn't until Rory had come into the demonstration, well past the halfway point, that all changed. It's very clear, there's no shadow of a doubt that Rory was immediately targeted. They called them out by name, and the TUPD immediately tried to, take Rory and isolate them from the demonstration. And I kind of, as a marshal, I, just wanted the demonstration to stay safe. And so as I, just kind of stood by wearing my yellow vest, I heard the police, the Tulane Police Department, attempt to tell Rory that, they're not allowed on campus because, this person, clearly because this person, Walter Isaacson, had batted them, and the university was scared about one of their former, emeritus board members kind of being in the news for battering a student. And they were telling Rory that because of that, Rory couldn't be on campus, but also paradoxically, that Rory had to come onto campus so that they could give them a citation. And I go back and.
I'm sorry, but like what you're telling me right now is that Rory, who is a student at Tulane, was not allowed on Tulane's campus. That on its face doesn't make any sense. But but that's not uncommon, I suppose, for the instructions that cops give at these sorts of things.
Especially not with Tulane University. Just being a Black activist, I've heard the stories about how Tulane treated its Black activists in 2020. With they don't. This is Tulane Police Department talking about. This is like the dumping ground for NOPD, a department that doesn't even match constitutional policing. This is where they dump their rejects. So these aren't the brightest people we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who have to wear
island of misfit toys.
Exactly. People who have to wear body armor to watch children go to class.
Oh my gosh.
Just witnessing this, I may not be a lawyer. I may just be an everyday, worker and citizen like the rest of us. But I understand bullshit when I hear it, and so that when I heard that's when I decided I was gonna step up to the captain and explain that one, that made no sense, and that two, that the people there collectively weren't gonna stand for them trying to target and isolate a student, not because the student did anything wrong, but because Walter Isaacson wants to participate in the crimes of the U.S. government and is willing to batter anyone who says otherwise. So how I actually got arrested was once I started speaking up, the cops kind of ended up just doubling down, and they actually one of the sergeants physically grabbed Rory and was like, all right, well, we actually don't need any kind of probable cause to just, grab someone out of a demonstration. So we're just going to grab them. And, when I went to speak up to that cop, I barely got any real words in, maybe like a sentence or so before I hear, if you move, you're going to jail. And not even a heartbeat after that, I was being pulled and arrested.
Oh my gosh.
So,
that is not even a warning. Like, if you move, what does that even mean?
Like, literally, I could not tell you. And I also couldn't tell you how I got charged with battery. And and that's the other craziest thing about it too. I ended up
So
being
what Rory did, I'm sorry, but what Rory did was was get battery, and Walter Isaacson does not get charged with that, but you get charged with battery for being arrested. I'm sorry, continue. Oh gosh.
Yeah. No, thank you for pointing it out. And I noticed this is an audio format, and so I'm describing
Mhm.
something that is best seen by people just going on the Jones MacDonald Defense Committee Instagram page. Just watch the videos yourself, because it's blatant that when they realized that they couldn't get Rory without upsetting the crowd, they thought that they could just target the closest Black person and arrest them, and call it a day for getting their one arrest on the students. And so, yeah, I was arrested and charged with battery, obstructing a public place, and obstructing an officer for daring to call out, what was what was going to be an illegal arrest. So, and that's where we are now. Right now, we're fighting the charges against me and Felix, and we're shining the light on the criminals that really should be charged. And people, if they want to support us, they should support the organization we formed to defend ourselves and any other demonstrators being targeted in this moment for the crime of standing against genocide. And yeah.
Yeah, and you can find more information about McDonald, the Jones McDonald defense by I know their Instagram, Jones X McDonald Defense. Is there anything else that you want to talk about when it comes to that?
Yeah, well, we really want people to come out to our court dates, because we found that as we've been going to court, it's not just individual bad apple officers who suck at their job and exist primarily to disobey the very laws that they claim to uphold. It's the court system as well, because every time we've tried to show up with court with our friends, as is legally mandated, these are public courts, so it's in the Constitution. You have to allow people to witness the injustice process happen. We've been blocked twice from having people come in, and we've had to fight and argue with constables just merely to enter the courthouse. And so, we want definitely people come to the next court date. It's going to be my court date on April 23rd at 11 a.m. at the City Municipal and Traffic Court. Come out. We could really use the support, and we just really want to also just expose the type of issues we're fighting against in NOCOP. This, discrimination and persecution by the state against Black people, against activists, because it's really a kangaroo court. That you can be caught on camera having a crime be committed against you, and be going to court multiple times, and having a judge look you in the face after you are almost barred from entering court and say, "Well, I see probable cause here, so we're going to go through with this and put this through the process." It's really disgusting.
Yeah. You are listening to WHIV LP New Orleans 102.3. This is Good Morning Comrade. We have Felix, Rory, and Toni as guests on the show. And we were actually talking about actions that have been taking place in response to the genocide taking place in Gaza right now, and also some of the actions that have been taking place specifically in New Orleans, and how the three of these guests have been at the really subject to violence from either the state itself or powerful individuals within it. I did want to sort of circle back to your story, Toni, because I know you were held in a jail cell for some times as well. Do you want to sort of describe that? I know that there was almost an incident where you were going to be held through the weekend and stuff like that. So if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you so much, because that's the other part of this. We want to expose the criminals for sure, but we also want to, we want to build a strong movement, and that only works if we stay in solidarity together and we understand how to handle these charges, because this is not a local phenomenon. What Palestinians are doing in Palestine is helping to expose not only the crimes of the U.S. Internationally, but also internally with how it handles political activists. So this is happening all over the country. So to explain that and why I say that is when I got arrested on a Saturday. So, there was not going to be court really until Monday. And, like I said, for the crime of daring to speak up, just use my voice against an officer, I'm put through, the new progressive New Orleans jail now that we have the former IPM Susan Hudson, running it. And all that means is that they ask you if you're trans like 5 times and ask you about your genitals a bunch and then throw you in the men's prison anyways. So in the men's jail.
No, that's
So
what a wonderful experience.
so that's liberalism for you. That's
They wanted to make sure that they had that at least that part right, and then do it wrong anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So like lacking any real appropriate like trans like inclusive like housing and stuff in the jail. I was told that because the cop decided to throw the battery charge on there, that it didn't matter that people were calling in to demand me be released, that the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office was not going to release me because of the battery charge. And so the cop obviously knew that if he threw that in there, he could just make my day that much worse. But the people didn't let that stop us, and the people just kept on calling. And because we knew that the legal system doesn't work at the pace of just the law; it also works at the pace of politics. And so, we put that to action, and we ended up pushing so hard that even though I was, the night had gone kind of starting to get go long. I was in my jumpsuit. I'm convinced I'm going to be there till Monday. But all my comrades and Freedom Road and all the others in the movement got a judge to call the jail and to give me my peace bond right then and there, so that I didn't even have to spend not even a single night. And this is after being told, this is after seeing a lawyer, after being told that nah, you're just going to be there, potentially till Monday. And so. That's exactly the type of attitude that we're taking with these charges, where, we're not trusting the system to work because the system is, only working against us in it, from the beginning to end. And so we're utilizing our organizing skills, against this injustice process to, make sure that, that they know that we're not guilty, we're not sorry, and we're not going to accept any of these bogus charges.
Yeah, can I ask you a question? When they threw you into jail, was it it wasn't like a cell with 1 or 2 others? It was like a general population tank, right? Was that the situation with multiple men in there? And I mean, you as a trans woman, I mean, I know that you can handle yourself generally, but it's in that sort of a situation, you're a target. I mean, that's got to be terrifying.
I mean, your options are always just house up with the men or be alone. And they didn't even give me an option. They just threw me alone. And in the times that they did have, we're in a
you were alone
kind of population. But when they had to lock us up, it was all right, go into your cell alone. So, but Felix also, went through the same thing. But I think Felix got arrested after me. And by then, the jailhouse already knew what was happening, and our people were already ready. And, because we have to train not, ourselves and our enemy. And so by the time Felix went in, we got Felix out much faster, and the people at the jail were already begging us to stop calling and begging us to, to leave them alone. But Felix can talk about that.
You want to talk about it? Yeah, go ahead, Felix.
Yeah, sure. So, like Tony said, I was only in there for about 3 hours. But, to me, one of my big takeaways is, of course, I had the luxury of kind of not being scared because I knew exactly what was going to happen. I knew everybody and their mom was going to call the jail and say, get Felix out. And I knew that would succeed in getting me out. But, it did kind of highlight for me actually being in there, putting on an orange jumpsuit and eating the food that didn't have any vegetables on the tray. I mean, it does not
jail food. Jail food is, I mean, it's like a joke, but jail food sucks.
Right. And I mean, to me, it didn't even taste too bad. Maybe just because I am a terrible cook, but and I don't want to sound self-aggrandizing or anything, but it does, being in there does make you think about the people who don't know how long they're going to be in there. And,
Mm-hmm.
it makes me think about how Louisiana has per capita one of the highest rates of incarceration in the entire world, and how this is disproportionately folks who are black, brown, people who maybe English is not their first language. It sort of made me connect that and think about the New Orleans citizen who was kidnapped in the middle of the night and is set to get tried by an Israeli military court, which has a near unanimous conviction rate. And this is a grandmother, I believe, from Gretna.
Check our episode with her son actually in our archives, definitely.
Right, but I mean, it's like, not to bring it back to English class, but it's like, we read probably, if you read that book, The Trial, just that feeling of not knowing, like by Kafka or whatever, just that feeling of not knowing what is going to happen. I didn't know if I was going to be able to call anybody. And it was kind of fine for me. I knew I was going to be late for work, which was not the biggest deal for me, but for a lot of people, that is a big deal. I mean, people could get fired because of that, particularly if, you got charged with a BS offense like I did, obstructing, resisting an officer, and disturbing the peace for protesting a war. It seems pretty ridiculous to me. And it's just kind of funny how I feel like I hear people talk about political repression a lot of the time, and they'll talk about a country like China and North Korea. And my response to that is like, well, we're living it right here. Like, I don't know anything about those other countries, but I know what I'm experiencing right here. And, I've been in prison or jail, and it's real here. Don't worry about them. Yeah.
And also, we have higher incarceration rate than China, just in Louisiana. So, I ain't trying to hear a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if you wanted to add anything to this conversation, Rory. I know that you were not arrested, but maybe you wanted to provide your perspective specifically with the defense group that y'all are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I was on the outside. I wasn't arrested at either time, but I was I was clued in pretty quickly. I mean, with Toni, I was literally right there when she was arrested. And I can say everything that she said about it was absolutely true. It was a ridiculous arrest. And it's really absurd that she would be charged with battery for speaking. I mean, for doing nothing other than sort of.
Those were some very, very powerful words, Toni. I mean, wow.
But the phone zap, the results of the phone zap speak for themselves. I mean, Toni and Felix both did not spend a night in jail, and I was making calls. I was getting friends and family all over the country to make calls. And the thing with the phone zaps is they really try to give you the runaround. They try to tell you that you're calling the wrong person, or they say, "Oh, I don't have any power to do anything about this. Like, that's not my job." And what we kept doing was we just kept calling, and we kept saying like, "Hey, we know that's not, we know that's not the real story. Like, you guys have, just demand immediate release and get in their face about it." And it can be pretty disparaging at times, because that's how people who work for the police are. They want you to kind of give up. They want you to think that the legal system is this like mystifying thing that you're not smart enough or experienced enough to understand. But the reality is that we showed them people power, and it worked.
Yeah, great. So I guess sort of thinking ahead, as these things kind of move forward, what are some, I guess, takeaways that you have going forward to these sorts of things, and like how that can sort of inform actions that y'all are going to be taking in the future? I guess we want to take it, Felix.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it just further connects the the way we're dehumanized by police here every day, and again, especially Black folks, undocumented folks, are dehumanized by police here every day. Is an experience shared over here with what folks experience in Palestine, and it's just another reason to connect the struggle for things like Black liberation and Palestinian liberation. And to me, it kind of strengthens my resolve. They were definitely trying to intimidate us, but I mean, I think our generation, has seen particularly so many Black folks get murdered by the police, and it's obviously I was not treated that way. I was not murdered, but it really makes it a little bit more real, I think, when a police puts their hands on you and throws you to the ground, and gives you a feeling for the abusive nature of how they can be, and how they're not really trying to protect us. They're trying to protect the board members for the Port of New Orleans. They're trying to protect people like Walter Isaacson. They're not here for us. And this is just what they do. And it kind of, I think it strengthens all our resolve to keep fighting back against that.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to give each, because you all do, you are all representatives of different organizations. I wanted to give you each a moment to talk about some of the ones that you're kind of involved in as a part of this. So I guess either Felix or Toni, would y'all like to talk about No Cop? Just sort of like a little bit generally. Go ahead.
Of course. Like Felix says, this resolves the work that we already do in No Cop. We're coming from the police reform part of the movement, and we clearly saw and see the links every day between what we have in New Orleans, whether it was the Palantir, surveillance technology being deployed on New Orleans citizens, or just the way that our institutions invest in Israel. We knew that there was already the connection, but this kind of, this being in solidarity actually puts some material reality behind it. And so we are continuing with our, number one demand, which is that if people are going to be policed, we should have a say in how we are being policed. We demand, as our number one demand, community control of the police. It's a historic demand of our movement, not only in New Orleans, but of Black people all over the country, popularized by the Black Panther Party. And what it means is we want an ordinance in our cities that say that there will be a community oversight board with teeth, that the people get to elect representatives that will have no, connection with the police department, that can do things like set the budget, that can do things like, write policy, that can subpoena the cops, that can elect the superintendent. And we aren't waiting until, we win this ordinance. Of course, we're building this sense of democratic demands around how we're being policed every day. One, by revealing and agitating, like with this instance, just how unjust the injustice system is, but also in our day-to-day work. Currently, what we have that I want all of the listeners to know about is a town hall with the NOPD superintendent. If people want following the appointment of the new superintendent, Ann Kirkpatrick, basically she was appointed pretty much solely by the mayor. There were no, public presentations on who would be the superintendent. It was announced. There was no community input. Even in the, we had one moment to do public comment on the city council confirmation of the appointment. And it was pretty much a universal, we do not want this superintendent. This person does not represent the concerns that we have. This person, is talking about getting rid of our consent decree and our oversight, of this unconstitutional department. And so what our town hall is it's going to be the very first opportunity that New Orleans citizens will have and actually talking, with the superintendent and being able to lay out our concerns with not only her leadership coming into the city and what we expect of her, but also of the department as a whole. So this is going to be on April 9th at the Chimay Rec Center at 5:30 p.m. I don't have the address on me, but if you know the Chimay Rec Center, you can just look it up. And we want all, sectors of the community to come out and be there and share your concerns. But we're also looking to do work with the Jones X MacDonald Defense Committee to, reassure demonstrators that, like, just because a cop breaks the law doesn't mean you should be scared to come out to protests. We want to, help beef up our readiness to deal with these types of violations of our First Amendment rights. And so we're also eager to do that as well and support ourselves, but also others, who are who is facing a similar political repression.
Great. Thank you
So
for that.
I went on long. I don't know if you had any questions about that.
No, I think you actually gave a pretty good layout. And please, we have 10 minutes left. Rory, I guess I wanted to talk to you about SDS at Tulane. Can you sort of describe the organization and what kind of things you'll have going on?
Absolutely. Students for Democratic Society, we're a nationwide org. We have, I think, more than 50 chapters at different universities across the country now. And, we're a refounding, or part of a refounding of the original Students for Democratic Society, which is a huge part of the efforts to, defeat U.S. imperialism during the war on Vietnam. And we formed at Tulane because basically it was beginning to be sort of late October of 2023 at Tulane, and there wasn't a single student group on campus that was willing to talk about Palestine. And so, I came together with some other people, and we decided that it was way past time. Tulane is one of the richest, whitest major universities in the country. I something like 80% or 70, I think something like 80% of our student body are in the top 20% of like average national household incomes. There's a lot of, it's a very, very upper class bourgeois school. And we basically decided it's way past time that there was an action-based student group on campus that's actually for national liberation, that's for the working class, that's for queer liberation. And so that's kind of how we came to be. And right now we have a campaign. Our campaign right now is about disclosure and divestment. But,
from Israel.
Yeah. Divestment
so
from
disclosing,
Israel.
So you mean, when you say that, you mean disclosing the relationship that the university has with Israel, what kind of economic holdings and, whatever economic like investment that Tulane has with Israel, and then also fighting to get them to remove those investments. And that's part of a two-step process, because if you don't know what they're doing or what the investments are, you can't tell them what to divest, right?
Right, exactly. And we're actually trying to get them to disclose generally from, or just disclose their endowment generally, and not just where it's connected to Israel, because we know from something, they're very shady about it. We know from some things that they're in fossil fuels, they're in oil and gas. And we have a feeling that it won't just be support for Israel that comes out if, when they eventually disclose, that there'll be all sorts of things that students and that the general community will have plenty of reasons to be outraged against Tulane, which is already true. It's already so true. If you live in New Orleans, you probably know. But yeah, National SDS is a great organization. They were very helpful in founding our new chapter. We've grown a lot. We've something like 50 members now, even though we're only like 6 months old. And I really encourage anyone listening, if you're a student, if you know students, reach out to National SDS. There's a network there to help you start a new chapter wherever you are. If your school already has an SDS, why aren't you there?
And then I guess finally, I know a couple of y'all are members and leaders within Freedom Road. I guess could somebody sort of talk about what Freedom Road is and what y'all are up to?
Sure. Freedom Road Socialist Organization is an organization of revolutionaries started in the 80s, coming out of the new communist movement. We have cadre from all corners of the country, from north to south, east and west, and we are fighting in the people's struggles, from police crimes, which I fight in, to immigrant rights, to the anti-war struggle, to labor. We're really big in the Teamsters. About half of our membership or more is in unions, and we love to fight on the shop floor, and students as well. And we believe that, the system, the way it's set up under capitalism, is no good, and that, the people will only be liberated through struggle, and hopefully what we're looking to achieve is a socialist future. I'm going to keep it brief on that point. But if you're eager to, are a fighter and you're eager to learn more about the type of socialism that we're looking to build, you can look us up on frso.org. And if you're more casually interested in the work that we do in the day-to-day, all of our actions, all of our activity, you can find that in our newspaper at fightbacknews.org. And, that's the best place to get your news and views from the people's struggle.
All right. Well, thank you so much, all, for joining us. And good morning, Comrade. We're going to play us out with a song supplied by Sabrine. And this is Diana Carazon. This is the description that Sabrine sent me. She's singing about the Palestinian people's resistance and strength. And in one line, she says, "In the face of occupation, we do not rest," and that all years we've been resisting is proof of that. So, we're going to be playing us out with that. Thank you so much again, Felix, Toni, and Rory. And thanks to everyone for listening to Good Morning Comrade. We love you. Bye-bye.
وجه المحتل وما بنهدى واشهد يا زمان. شدوا بعضكم يا اهل فلسطين، شدوا بعضكم والله معكم يا اهل فلسطين والله معكم. أنا وقت الجد وعند الرب طوفان ومد فلسطيني، من فوق الأرض تحت الأرض وأنا الاسمي فلسطيني. أنا وقت الجد وعند الرب طوفان ومد فلسطيني، من فوق الأرض تحت الأرض وأنا الاسمي فلسطيني. فلسطيني واسمي معروف ولا ما بنذل، واللي بيسأل عن الفلسطيني بيندل. فلسطيني واسمي معروف ولا ما بنذل، واللي بيسأل عن الفلسطيني. اضرب سلام وحيي للشعب البطل، اضرب. شدوا بعضكم يا اهل فلسطين، شدوا بعضكم والله معكم يا اهل فلسطين والله معكم. فلسطين شدوا بعضكم والله معكم يا اهل فلسطين والله معكم. شدوا بعضكم يا اهل فلسطين، شدوا بعضكم والله معكم يا اهل فلسطين والله معكم. شدوا بعضكم يا اهل فلسطين، شدوا بعضكم والله معكم يا اهل فلسطين والله معكم. شدوا بعضكم يا اهل فلسطين، شدوا بعضكم والله معكم يا اهل فلسطين والله معكم.
You are listening to WHIVLP New Orleans 102.3.